For Creamer Media's Polity, I'm Sane Dhlamini. Researcher and analyst Professor Raymond Suttner joins me for Suttner's View, a weekly commentary on South Africa's political scene. Welcome, Professor.
Thank you.
From the ANC conference in December, we heard them addressing the issue that has been around for so long, the issue of land. Why do you think it's taking them so long to bring this issue back?
Yeah, you know, on the principle, there is no reason, in my view, to have new legal provisions on expropriation without compensation. Within the existing constitution, there's no barrier, there's nothing about willing seller, willing buyer. Yesterday, Jesse Duarte said, well, willing seller, willing buyer has not worked. But that's not in the constitution. That was just the way the government tackled it. And I think that the reason why it got passed in the ANC conference, with a lot of qualifications, by the way, about that it should not affect food security, a number of these things, and the economy as a whole must not be affected. The reason why it got passed, I think, is that the forces in support of Nkosazana and Dlamini Zuma and that of Cyril Ramaphosa were more or less equally based, so that it was hard to avoid passing something like that. I think the Ramaphosa people did not want it, and I don't think even now that they're so happy about it, because with Ramaphosa's attempt to assure business that things are fine, to talk about expropriation without compensation is a problem. It's not to say that there can't be expropriation without compensation now. It's just that that can't be the principle on which property relations are governed and property is acquired or disposed of. If you look at the Constitution, there are provisions there which allow for expropriation to take place in the public interest and to take account of historical factors, the way in which land was acquired, things like that. Now, that being the case, it is possible under the existing Constitution to give no compensation in some circumstances. Someone was saying in an article in the Daily Maverick, reprinted from ground up, that what the Constitution really caters for is if there is expropriation in the public interest, in some cases that public interest should not be financed by one individual alone, so that some compensation should be paid. It depends on the case. You can't have a blanket thing one way or the other. That is, so I think that in the conference and now, it's been an attempt to hold the ANC together, but also to ward off the challenge of the EFF.
Now, AfriForum launched a campaign to tell international community or foreign government that they mustn't come and invest in our country because of this. Do you think it was a wise move from the AfriForum?
Yeah, I don't think it's a good idea. You know, this thing is still unfolding, and it's going to go through various committees, and the ANC understanding of the resolution in Parliament and the EFF understanding is not the same, and I'm not sure that this will pose a danger to investment. So it would not, in my view, it's not a desirable thing to do.
And now the EFF as well has come out with something that is interesting in Nelson Mandela Bay. They've threatened to unseat the mayor there, Athol Trollip, because the DA didn't vote with them in Parliament. Do you think this is just showing us that maybe even the coalition from the word-go was not something that was concrete?
Well, you know, the coalition, when they formed the coalition, they knew the DA had a different stance towards land expropriation. And last year, they had a resolution like this that was defeated. Now, why is that the basis for breaking up the coalition or for making Trollip fall? So I think it's not really related to the land expropriation so much as flexing of muscles. But I don't know. You know, it's not really a land expropriation issue. It's an issue of EFF-DA relations. I think the DA's general strength is being put under strain in Cape Town, as well as by not just its relations with the EFF, but with the UDM. The EFF, the DA handled them very badly in Nelson Mandela Bay. So they could go out, but I mean, it's not clear. They haven't given reasons, which to me explain it properly.
We know that the EFF has had like issues of like grabbing the land, but then President Cyril Ramaphosa came out and said this should not be done in a haste. And yesterday we also had International Relations Minister Lindiwe Sisulu also saying that people must be calm because this will be done in a manner that will make sure that South Africans benefit. Do you think this will happen like before the elections? Because one would say maybe that the ANC is trying to win elections with this land issue.
Well, grabbing the land is illegal. It's illegal to grab land. That's not the same as expropriation. To just go and occupy and take land is illegal. I don't know whether it's going to happen before the elections. I think the ANC would probably like to spin it out till it can come to a result that is close to the existing constitution. The brief of the committee is related to changing the constitution, but in reality what the ANC wants to achieve, it's not put its resources there behind achieving it over the years. There was, for example, a case relating to Mala Mala where 1 million was going to be compensation and paid for property, and was being challenged. And before it could be tested in court whether that was required as compensation, the minister settled for 1 million. And people say that the property was actually worth 700,000, and the 1 million that was used was about 1/3 of the budget of rural development. So that the reason why land has not been distributed is not the constitution, it's that there's been a lack of political will. And we need to ask what people who are now advancing these changes, what they have done to create that political will, whether as EFF or as ANC people who now say they favor land distribution. They've not done much, and ANC has not deployed the resources that it has. But also, you know, if you expropriate land and you give it to some other people, they need other resources besides the land to be able to work the land. So all of these things need to be taken into account. Whether it happens before the election, I don't know. I doubt it, because what I think Cyril Ramaphosa wants to do is, on the one hand, win the elections, but on the other hand, he wants to reassure the middle classes and big business that he is not reckless.
Thank you, Professor. That was Professor Raymond Suttner speaking to Crema Media's Polity about expropriation of land without compensation.